Morning everyone, out for a walk this morning. Going to be giving you a bit of a book review, and I've got 10 books that I think everyone should read. They're in no particular order and they're actually not a top 10, just 10 that I like, and I'll maybe do another review with more. So stay tuned and I'll tell you what they are and what I took in terms of take-home messages from them. Right, so first book is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. That is a book about how we've become very, very entrenched in comfort, and the human brain does look for comfort whenever it can. In fact, 90% of all inventions in the last 30 years have been for human comfort. So what that has resulted in, actually, if you've ever seen that movie Wall-E, and all of those people are on that ship, the Axiom, up in space, and they don't do anything, they just float around on chairs that do everything for them. Well, we're sort of becoming that way. And anyway, I said I would tell you take-homes, not digress into Pixar movies. The take-home from that one is that he reckons we should, well, the story is basically about him doing a thing called a misogi. And a misogi has two parts to it. Number one is it should be very, very, very hard. And number two is you shouldn't die. But when you do something like that, it really does push the discomfort levels right up. And that's where we learn. We don't learn anything sitting on the couch with our feet up. We only learn when we're working hard and we're leaning into discomfort. And that's where you reach what's called the growth edge. And at that point, you can peer over the edge and see, what can I learn here? So Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, definitely one if you should probably start with it, actually, because a lot of what I talk about on this channel requires you to get up and do something. It requires, the phrase mood follows action, so it requires you to do something. A lot of what I ask people to do is hard work, and if you read that book, you'll understand why I'm trying to get you to do that hard work. So start with that one. Okay, next up is book number 2, which is Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. It's probably no secret to some of you out there that he's a bit of a hero of mine. He's like he's just a wise sage of a guy, and his book Finding Ultra is about his battle with cocaine and alcohol addiction and how he ended up kind of at rock bottom, lost his law practice, was living in a studio apartment with no furniture, lost his marriage fell apart, things like that, and he's come back from that and won double Ironman events, an event called the Ultraman. I think he might have won it twice, and he's since created this amazing following, this huge YouTube and podcast network of just brilliant advice and fantastic guests, and I'd definitely recommend you check him out. But the take home from that is anyone can change. It doesn't matter where you are just now in your life journey. You're not on train tracks. You're on a path through the woods, and you can change direction. You can take a different path. You don't have to stay where you are. So if he could do that, if he could get to where he was and get to where he now is, then I believe anyone can. So that's book number 2, Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. Okay, number 3 is The Attributes by Rich Diviney, or Diviney. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he created a thing called the Mind Lab to try and train Navy SEALs how to manage things when the going gets tough, because he had all these guys who should have been really good SEALs, but because on paper they were fantastic soldiers, but when it came to this Navy SEAL training, they couldn't do it, and they would bail out after a couple of weeks. And he realized that people have attributes, and he created, did I say it was called the Mind Gym? I think it was called the Mind Gym or the Mind Lab, and it was a way for people to look at their attributes and try and figure out what they could improve on. Now, the one to take home from that, because he's got, I think there's like 40 different attributes, but the one I took from that was accountability. And I have mentioned this lots of times before, we need to be really accountable for our behaviours and for our situation. We can't rely on others to fix it for us. We have to think, what's my role here? How can I be better? What could I do to improve my current situation and setup? And that's where I think accountability is really important, especially self-accountability. And I said it on another video recently, stop blaming the politicians and the healthcare service, because you're unwell, if you've got lifestyle choices that have made you that way, try and see if there's something you could be doing, because it is a two-way street, and I'm sure there's plenty of medical people out there who'd be delighted to help you, but they also expect you to do some of the work. So anyway, accountability, book number 3, I think it's 3, the Attributes by Rich Diviney. Okay. Oh gosh, I'm in danger of saying okay all the time like Simon did on that Iron Man video, haven't I? Okay. Number 4, and I'm saying again all the time. I've been trying really hard not to say that. Anyway, number 4 is Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. I mean, it does what it says on the tin. He was a monk for 3 years, and it talks about how he learned all his monkish behaviour, and there's quite a lot of tips in there on contentment and happiness and what have you. But the take home for me in that one was a thing called reverse envy. If you're upset because someone has something that you want and you don't have it, well, it's not very helpful to be envious or jealous of that. And in fact, the phrase is something like, if someone you love has something you want, would you take it away from them in the full knowledge that you would not have it? And the answer is usually no, because actually you're just being nasty. And if you want it, you have to go and get it yourself. You can't be upset with what other people have or what other folk have achieved. So Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. Right, number 5 is Born to Run by Chris McDougall. It is one of the best books I've ever read, and as soon as I read it, I think I was straight down the shoe shop buying running shoes. It is amazing. It's one of these books that you read and you think, oh my goodness me, I am so designed for running. Why? Well, I'm not designed for running, but genetically, as a species, we're designed for running. I'm kind of more designed for slobbing about and things. But anyway, that book is definitely worth reading. Right, sorry, I had to cut that short in like the quietest place in the local area, and I just bumped into someone who was looking at me like, what are you doing? Where was I? Yes, the Born to Run. So it's a wonderful book about an ultramarathon race between some ultramarathon superstars and a tribe called the Tarahumara tribe, who live in the Copper Canyons, I think, somewhere in South America. And it is just amazing. It's amazing. And he talks about the science behind running and how humans are definitely designed for it. So the take home from that is we should all be doing some kind of physical activity, and running, believe it or not, is probably one of the ones we could all do if we're capable. But even people who say they can't probably can. So besides, it's a good excuse to go and buy a pair of running shoes after you read that. So that's book number 5. Number 6 is, I forgot what number 6 is. Hold on. Right, just quick checking my notes there. Number 6 is Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tuliken. It's recently come out, and it's a book about the world of ultra processed foods and all the things it does to us. I mean, there's not much to say about that one other than don't eat ultra processed foods. He talks a lot about why you shouldn't. And look who's there, who's walked into camera shot. Look at that. Hello. You're not ultra processed yet. If you're turned into some kind of salami or whatever, and that's pork, isn't it? And you'll be ultra processed. Anyway, so yeah, don't eat ultra processed food. There's a lot of evidence in there as to why it's bad for you, and it causes all kinds of problems. That's number 6. Right, number 7 is Finding the Scream by Johann Hari. This book it's really wonderful. It's a book about addiction, but it's told in a very different way, and it's not about people being addicted to the specific drug that they're on. It's more about the reasons why they've resorted to that, and if you fix that, then people are less likely to have issues of that kind. I think for me it's quite useful because you can, I just realised I'm walking past someone's house, so change direction so I don't have them in it. Where was I? Yes, I think you can, he's mostly talking about things like heroin and cocaine, things like that, but if you change that to whatever your vice is, whether it's online shopping or whether it's gambling or whether it's food or something like that, you can just make it about that as you're reading it and realise that you're doing those things because you're sad or you're upset or distressed or you've got poor coping strategies. And he does go into quite a lot of why people... Yeah, sorry, I'm having a bit of a brain fart there because I suddenly was thinking about a different book that he wrote, and I thought, oh, that's a bit similar. No, Lost Connections, yes, is the other book that I'm thinking of. So this one's supposed to be about chasing the stream, not Lost Connections. Anyway, he does cover a lot about what you can do to try and improve those addictive habits, if you like, and what governments and things can do. So definitely worth a read. Yeah. I think this is number 8. It's called The Way Out, and it's by a guy called Alan Gordon. It's a book about chronic pain, and he had back pain for a decade, and I don't think he's a doctor. I think he's like a PhD scientist, researcher or something, but he talks about this phenomenon called neuroplastic pain, which is what happens when you have chronic pain and it's been there for more than 3 months. And it's been really, really helpful. I had issues, as you'll have seen in a previous video, with my foot, which went on for almost 2 years, and basically I read that book and the pain just went away and it's never really come back. So that's the take home from that one, is that if you've had pain for more than 3 months, read that book, because he gives you lots of ways to try and actually alleviate your pain that don't require any medications, because at 3 months the medications are no longer really working. So that's that one. Okay, in at number 9, which is a bit of a left field edition, is one called Radical Alignment. Now, it's a very small book, but it's effectively a guide on how to have difficult conversations with people. And the two people that wrote it, Alex somebody and Bob somebody, sorry, I've completely forgotten, but it's two people that have written it. I'll put it here, and then you'll see what it is. They have created this thing called an AIM, A-I-M, which stands for an all-in meeting, and you can download a PDF of how to do that. But basically, this is what I want to talk about. This is why I want to talk about it, and this is when I want to talk about it. Oh, same to you. And it's a way of not having arguments. And my wife and I have used this for years now, and it's been very, very helpful. So that's book number 9. Okay, last book number 10 is The Body Keeps the Score, and this is by a guy called Basil van der Kolk. And Basil van der Kolk, yeah, so he's a psychiatrist. He retired, I think he's retired now, but he worked in Massachusetts for 30 years, and he does a lot of work on childhood trauma and transgenerational trauma and things like that. And effectively in that book he's saying, if you have things like depression, chronic pain, lots of other psychiatric illness, borderline personality disorder, things like that, it's probably down to the fact that you had a pretty terrible upbringing. And he talks about where that comes from. And I think most of us should read that book, because unfortunately a lot of us grew up with quite difficult things in our lives. So let's just leave it at that. And you should read that because it helps you understand where a lot of your issues might be coming from, and instead of looking for a psychiatric disease classification, maybe look at where it came from, and actually you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you, you can totally fix this. Now, he doesn't really go into how, but it does give you quite a good insight into why, and once you understand the why, you can begin to work on the how. So that would be my take home from that book. And yeah, really, it's a hard read. It's quite upsetting in places. I wouldn't suggest trying to read it in a oneer. That book is an adverse experience if you read it in a oneer. But over the space of a few weeks, you can really get some useful information out of that one. So there you go. That's book number 10. Hope that was helpful. I hope you found some useful tidbits there. I certainly try to get through as many of these kind of books as I can. Probably since I started this journey, read, close to 100 books, maybe more. And they've all been really useful. So maybe you can start with those 10. Not with number 10. That's not one to start with. Okay, take care. I'll see you in the next video.